Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. My name is Nate. I also go by Hockey Boy Nate, and today we're going to be discussing the potential for severe weather going into the mid parts of this week into the early parts of next week. Now, before we get started, I'm going to ask that you all do me a favor. Go down below the video and like it, subscribe if you're new, as well as hit the notification bell so you're up to date with all of my videos, including live streams that we do on severe weather events that get pretty bad, as well as share it with friends, family, or on social media and stuff like that. That is bonkers, dude. We are doing so well early in the morning. Yeah, it's 5:53 right now at the time of me making this video, so I'm pretty tired, and I'm also in a very big hurry because I have to leave in like, what, 40 minutes to go to work, so that'll be fun. Anyways, this video should be fun as we get into our first discussion topic, which is the Storm Prediction Center. And you can see right here, a slight risk of severe storms is forecasted for, guess what? The day that we've been talking about since Friday, Wednesday the 10th, March the 10th, there is a slight risk for severe thunderstorms. But hear me out, chat. It's not just Wednesday. You also have a marginal risk for Thursday. And then, look at this over here. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. We discussed this yesterday as to how the Storm Prediction Center pulled the trigger that there is a 15% chance for severe storms on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. They haven't retreated or retracted that thought. It's still there. So the Storm Prediction Center indeed still thinks that there is a good chance for severe weather on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Let's take a look at the updated slight risk here. And you can see that it has been added just in the eastern parts of Kansas, northern parts of Oklahoma. As I said yesterday, that's kind of where the Storm Prediction Center thinks that more thunderstorm initiation should be. I also said yesterday that they should expand the marginal a bit further south, and look at that, indeed they have, down to the south. So that is something to keep in mind, that areas near Oklahoma City, they very well could be experiencing some severe conditions across the board. The slight risk, though, is mainly for hail, though, which you can see has this yellow 15% circle. And what that means is if you have a 15% chance for hail, it's a probability of you seeing 1 inch hail or greater. So that is the severe parameters for hail. And in this case, they have issued a 15% for eastern Kansas and north central Oklahoma. Wind 5% across the board. It's not supposed to be like all too strong because there isn't really a lot of thunderstorms to develop, but it's still there, it's still present, and you still have that cold front that's sitting along a boundary right there. And then there is no tornado risk according to the Storm Prediction Center. Now this very well could change. Some of the parameters within this event still seem to be quite all right for tornadoes in that aspect, but the real issue is, will thunderstorms initiate further south than what we've already been told? All right, let's move on to day 3. And day 3 is a massive marginal extending from west central Texas all the way into central parts of Oklahoma into Springfield, Missouri. So northern Arkansas, southern Missouri, that general vicinity is to where you guys could potentially see a marginal risk of thunderstorms. Day 4 through 8, this is something that we really want to keep a close eye on. So day 4 right here already has a 15% chance for thunderstorms in central Oklahoma, north central Texas, which is pretty insane, mainly because usually the Storm Prediction Center doesn't issue these outlooks that far out unless if they have like extreme confidence that something will happen. And seems how yesterday they said that Sunday was a go for severe weather, and they haven't retracted it. That means there could be something on the horizon, and we'll have to take a look at that a bit more in depth as we take a look at the models. But day 4 is 15% severe weather risk for Oklahoma and Texas, and that's the same thing here on day 5. This is Saturday, except the risk extends further south into central parts of Texas, and also extends further north into south central parts of Kansas. And then day 6 is here. The risk does move off to the east, so southeastern Kansas into southern Missouri to eastern Oklahoma and northeastern Texas, like the Texarkana area. Actually, the Texarkana area seems to be kind of in the crosshairs here. Most of Arkansas is within the risk, and northwestern Louisiana into central Louisiana also seems to be in that event. All right, let's take a look at this event in a bit more in depth, and we'll take a look at the GFS model for this to be able to show off as to the timing of this, these low pressure systems that are moving on through. So here is Wednesday morning right here, or at least overnight Tuesday into Wednesday morning, and we have our low pressure here. You have the cold air and a little bit of moisture out behind it, so you have a lot of snow that's going to be falling over the Rockies as time goes along. So here's the low pressure system. It'll move on through, and you can see this little line right here is that severe weather threat on Wednesday night. You can also see how, according to the GFS, that thunderstorms do get far south enough so that it reaches central Oklahoma. But that is something to keep in mind as this continues to move on through, that some models do say it, some models don't, and that there are some limiting factors to prevent thunderstorms from initiating. But the low pressure does advect through, or not advect through, it does push through, I should say. Moisture does advect up from the Gulf, so that the moisture is there. It's not as strong, but it is still there. And you have yourself a classic low pressure system with some nice isolated precip all over the board, especially with some heavy snowfall amounts into the northern parts of this low. So that's something to keep in mind with that. Then as time goes on, this stationary front just stalls there, and so by Thursday evening you'll have this stretch of severe weather that can extend all the way through, as the Storm Prediction Center mentioned. So you can see right here that there is that line of storms right here, extends all the way into central Texas. So this is a bit more of an overnight threat on Tuesday, mainly at around the 8 or 9 o'clock hours, and that will go all the way into the latter parts of Friday, or the early stages of Friday, especially since right here we have a new low pressure that is pushing on through into the plains. So this is Friday afternoon into the evening, and you can see a lot of snow up in the Rockies, a lot of rain across the board here, but it doesn't really materialize all too well until, take a look at Saturday. Boom. Massive low pressure system with a massive swirl. Giant cold front with dry line out front. A lot of snow to the rear in Colorado, which is going to produce massive amounts of snow for the Rockies. But then again, you guys are kind of used to that at this point. And you could see the threat for not only some winter weather, but severe weather out in front of this cold front. So that's something to keep in mind as this continues to get closer and closer, that we will have to monitor the severity of this storm. Then heading into, actually this is Saturday evening. The Saturday evening, it's already well defined. So it'll be pushing through central parts of Texas into east central or not east, west central parts of Oklahoma, and then moving on through to later on in the overnight hours into the early morning hours on Sunday. Someone walked in and didn't close the door. That's kind of funny. Yeah, moving on into Sunday. You can see this is towards the afternoon and late evening hours, and this low pressure doesn't give up at all. As a matter of fact, here it is. You also can get some frozen precip to northern amounts like Iowa. You can possibly see some frozen precipitation in Iowa extending into Nebraska, and some snow on the latter spots of the low pressure system, especially into northern Nebraska and the southern South Dakota. But then you can also see right here that here is this warm front right here that will advect all the moisture from the Gulf of Mexico. So the moisture is moving up, and when you have this giant cold front right here, so I'll indicate this in blue right here. When you have this giant cold front, that can be a good indicator that you could have some damaging winds or gusty winds in and along the line that can push through and create some severe havoc. But moving on through into Sunday, the system does tend to expand a bit furthermore, and there is still a threat for some severe weather on Monday for the deep south. This is negatively tilted in regards to the line, so you could potentially see some big severe weather for the deep south again, as if you guys haven't already had enough earlier this year. Which it's the beginning of severe weather, so you might, or severe weather season, so you might want to buckle down a little bit, fasten your seatbelts, because you guys are in for a rocky road. True facts. So Monday evening, there could be the chance for some severe weather there, and by the time it gets to the east, you can see how the low pressure system kind of just veers off to the north. Let me put this to red real quickly. Low pressure system veers off to the north, and the northeast has a chance for some sort of frozen precip, as well as some severe weather in the mid-Atlantic, coastal Carolinas, and the deep south here. Now I do see this low pressure system right here that moves on through on the latter stages of Wednesday next week, and typically I would look at that. However, I don't think right now is the perfect time to do so. So in tomorrow's video, we'll look at that low pressure system moving through Tuesday and Wednesday next week. Just a little bit. We're still going to want to talk about the severe weather event this weekend, but regardless, it's still something that I'm going to have to prolong just a little bit, kind of little caught for time here. All right, let's take a look at the surface-based CAPE, which is the amount of energy that's in the air, the amount of buoyant force due to the rising warm air and sinking cold air. Because if you've ever seen steam in a pot, the steam loves to rise, and what that is doing is it's creating the warm air that's rising and cold air that's coming back down below it to sink. So, you know, it's a nice little real world representation to indicate what CAPE is in the atmosphere. So for this event here on Wednesday, you can see CAPE does get to around 1,000 joules per kilogram, maybe even more in some spots according to the GFS. Within the NAM, the NAM actually says that says it does get over that Mark II. So that's one thing where the models are being pretty consistent. And then as it continues to move on through, you can actually excuse me, I'm getting hiccups all of a sudden. CAPE actually almost gets up to 1,500 joules per kilogram, even though it says 1,300 right there. But some areas could see up to that much. and that is modest amount of CAPE. In order to consider thunderstorms, you would typically want 750 joules per kilogram, which is just a measure of energy if you're new to this, new to weather. So 1,000 to 1,500 is kind of meh, but if it's over 2,000, that's where people need to like start paying attention and stuff like that. But right now, there's not really a whole lot of moisture. It's a weak instability, as the Storm Prediction Center said, and so this event won't see the big classic supercells. It'll be more of these sporadic pop-up storms that could produce hail and gusty wind. I do want to take a look at the lapse rates real quickly, just real quickly. And what this is going to tell us is the lapse rates looks at a specific drop off in temperature at a specific height, and the measure of that drop off can be indicated as a lapse rate. So typically you would want well, actually, yeah, typically what you want would be at or above a 7, and if it's above that, then you could see some larger amounts of hail. So yeah, let's take a look into that part. You can see this is afternoon Wednesday right here, 21Z. Move it on next, and you can see it does reach the 7s in some spots. So you could see some nice little amounts of hail up and along this cold front, which is something to keep in mind because hail does do damage. It's not, this little thing that'll, fall from the sky. You'll be like, oh, it's hail. It's not that big of a deal. It's falling chunks of ice. Get inside. So it's just not a good idea if you're sitting out and you're just watching hail fall on you. So yeah, lapse rates got into the 7s. Some I even saw got into the 8s at one point, but I couldn't really confirm that on that slide image there. All right, let's take a look at the 500 millibar wind shear here. And wind shear, or at least that 500 millibars, which is a specific height in the air around 6 kilometers up in the atmosphere. This wind shear looks actually kind of decent. So here would be our event. I'm going to outline it for you all. So it'd be right around here. Actually, I'm sorry. That's a terrible drawing. There we go. And then our slight is like here. First try. This is great. So here's your event. And you also have to remember that thunderstorms typically move off a bit further. They start out from the west and move to the east. So the wind shear in itself starts like this, to where you have wind shear amounts in upwards of the low to mid 60s, maybe even 70s in some spots, which translates to 75 to 85, maybe not 90 miles per hour as wind shear. And that's actually pretty good. It's actually really good, because typically for you to, as I mentioned, consider thunderstorms, you're going to want at least 45 to 50 knots of wind shear, which is 50 to 55, maybe even 60 miles per hour. So this event is not bad on the wind shear aspect. It's just lacking moisture. So there's definitely a nice jet stream that's pushing on through. I'll even zoom it out a bit for you all, and you can actually see here that this jet stream just screams on through, and that this was the system here. This is on Wednesday evening. Here's the low pressure system that's just carrying the wind shear. It ejects through to the northern plains into the northern Midwest. And then you can see the second low pressure system that everyone's been talking about, including myself, for severe weather on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, you can see that it rears its ugly head right here. And that's where we need to watch out for, is this wind shear kind of just ejecting through into the target areas. Real quickly as well, we're going to go into temperatures, then dew points, and then we'll get out of your hair because not only do I need to get out of here, but I'm pretty sure you all do not want to be bored with longer videos. So temperatures here for Wednesday evening. Look at this. Extends all the way up into Kansas, Oklahoma. In some areas, it gets up to, look at this, 70 degrees for today on Tuesday. And then on Wednesday, in some areas, it just gets up to 75, maybe even 77. So that's pretty crazy in itself. But the temperatures seem to be relatively calm out in front of this event, which means that there probably isn't as much energy, if not a bit more cloud cover at specific spots. And indeed, I am seeing that for you weather enthusiasts, right in between 0 and 1 kilometers, there is some cloud cover that could be impacting the amount of CAPE that people could be getting, or moisture in general. So something to keep that in mind there. As well as you can see this cold front, massive drop off in temperatures, a good 10 to 15 degree drop off measured right here. So there is your cold front, which is pretty remarkable that you can see it on the models like that. One last thing, we're taking a look at the dew points, and typically if you want thunderstorms to even be considered, you want dew points in the low 60s. And in some spots it actually does get there. You do get into the 60s in northern Oklahoma, but everywhere else it seems to be the upper 50s, and that's not really too good in my honest opinion for severe weather. So dew points are still a thing later on, especially on Tuesday. Tuesday you get a lot of dew points, but on Wednesday doesn't seem to have all that instability that people may like for a severe weather event. One last thing, I know I keep saying one last thing, yada yada, but we're going to do the exact same thing for the events on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So we're going to take a look at the temperature here. And actually, we're going to go on Weather Bell for this. So that's in Celsius, and we're going to want to do... Where's South Central? There you go. Okay, so here's the GFS run. This is Thursday morning, heading into Friday now. So here's Friday. You can see temperatures do get a lot warmer in the target area. This is Friday afternoon into the evening, and this boundary kind of just sets up along Oklahoma into Missouri and into Tennessee, the stationary boundary that could cause a lot of flooding that I mentioned, I think 2-3 videos ago, something like that. So the stationary boundary still is in place. There is no massive cold front that pushes through compared to some other days. But then here on Saturday, look at this. A bowing characteristic that's starting to form here, which means that you could have some strong storms that could be pushing on through. And look at this. It's still going, chat. Usually when you have this giant temperature drop off like this, it typically means that you have a strong cold front that can produce some gusty winds, some real gusty winds. So it seems that it'll be impacting Fort Worth at the overnight hours on Saturday into Sunday, and it'll be impacting Central Texas at around Saturday evening, so around 7 o'clock, maybe 6 o'clock, give or take, because this model is still pretty far out, so we can't say with certainty which areas will get storms and which won't. Then on Sunday, Sunday afternoon and the evening, same story here. Massive cold front that develops right here, and you have your warm air that's advecting up. So your moisture is set in stone in front of the cold front. And usually, when you have this giant temperature drop off like this, you'll get storms to initiate along the line and wreak some havoc across the board here. So that's something to keep in mind too. That Sunday still looks pretty good for severe weather. Dew points, that'll be the last thing. So here's the dew points here, and you'll see the drop off for the event on Wednesday, mainly because there's this just boundary that's riding up and along. It's a weak boundary, a weak dry line, if you will, that sets up for Wednesday's event, so you don't really get a whole lot of initiation or forcing there. The thermos, as I mentioned, are pretty bad, or instability. But then the front starts to become a bit more east-west. You can see how it just rides across from the west to the east, and that you might have another cold front that could be developing in the rear. But until then, dew points in the 60s for the most part in the target area. Texas, central Texas into Oklahoma, the upper 50s in some spots, but that'll probably get fixed up real quickly, and you can see how it actually gets to the low to mid 60s in some spots on Friday evening. And then Saturday, take a look at this. Look at this giant dry line right here. Massive drop off right here. Massive dry line that'll be pushing through Texas, which just by looking at this alone, this could include a lot of gusty winds along the line. Gusty winds could get in upwards of 60 miles per hour, maybe even 70 in some spots if it gets if storms get mature enough. So definitely something to keep in mind with this storm. And then it'll be reaching Dallas Fort Worth in the overnight hours of Saturday. Sunday, you can see how the cold front still gets pushed on through, and that there are still some areas that get into the 60s for dew points, so that instability is still there heading on into Sunday, and maybe even to parts of Monday, moving on through into the early stages of next week. That's going to be it for me, guys. I hope you all enjoyed this video. If you did, please be sure to leave a like, subscribe if you're new, turn on notifications so that you're up to date with all of my content, whether it is videos or live streams, to where we break down events while it's happening. And make sure to share this on social media, whether it's with friends and family or just on Twitter and stuff like that. Be sure to go follow me on Twitch, HockeyBoy and Nate. I do video games and stuff like that on that whenever I can, if I'm not messing around. So if you want to watch me play video games, get to know me a bit more, go for it. Follow me at HockeyBoy and Nate. But otherwise, that's going to be it for me. I will see you guys in the next video and or live stream. Peace out.